And welcome to another Saturday live stream presentation here on the Jazz Mental channel. My name is Paul Toby. Thanks for joining me and taking the time out of your busy day. Today we're going to be focused on clusters and chromaticism, my favorite subject, because I think this type of dissonance adds a lot of flavor to your playing. As jazz players, we're always looking for that sound that bends the ear a little bit and makes it just outside the norm so that we can experience the beauty and the overtones of the piano by putting all of these notes together. So I'm going to give you a few formulas for that. We're working on the tune Here's That Rainy Day, which I think, as Jimmy Van Heusen wrote a lot of tunes, this is one of my favorites. And it really lends itself well because it has these descending chromatic bass notes, which is kind of fun. I've actually put together an entire arrangement, not just a lead sheet. I've written the chords out, gone through the entire head section, and given you some great chord voicings and suggestions to chord voicings that I'd like to see. If you're new here, and I'm going to give a shout out to a few of you in just a second, but if you're new, just identify yourself as new in the chat. And if you are new, welcome. Thanks for coming. I can already see that there's a lot of my deeply committed people here that I see week to week. Great to see you all here. People like Modi and Keith and Alan and Steve and Rich and Allison, Shell, David. Nice to see you all. Great to have you here as usual. Here's how it's going to work for the new people. We kind of like to keep the same formula from Saturday to Saturday so people know what to expect. So first off, I play the tune so we can do a bit of listening. Open our ears, hear where we're headed with our playing, put some ideas out there, so that your ears can get used to the sound that we're after. And then after that, I'm going to share the sheet music. So this week, a little bit different. Typically, I share the sheet music before, but I don't want anybody distracted by the sheet music. What I want you to do is just open your ears and hear a lot of the voicings that are going to make their way into this presentation. And then afterwards, I'll share the sheet music link and we'll discuss some of the details of the voicings and these chromatic and clusters, chromatic notes and clusters. And we'll have a lot of fun doing that. I'm very analytical, as many of you know. So if you haven't been here before, then you'll notice that I'm very detail oriented. So that's what you have to look forward to. And then at the end of today, if you need a reason to stick around for the whole hour, I'm going to give you one right now. Near the end, I'm going to reveal my favorite minor seventh piano voicing. Now, I know that sounds strange because there's probably like a million different ones, but there is one in particular that I think needs to be shared. And if you're really looking for a way to voice a minor seventh chord that has richness and dissonance at the same time, then stick around to the end and I'm going to share that. Okay. So the tune is Here's That Rainy Day. I'm going to play it. First of all, before I do that, and this happens sometimes, I get in the middle of things and then people are screaming at me in the chat area to kind of fix the sound. So let's just do a quick sound check and let me know first you can hear my voice okay, and then the piano. Just let me know that the volume of the piano is good, and I'll get started. And while you're getting back to me on that, just let me say hi to a few people in the chat, including the deeply committed people, Mark and Jerry, and Joel, and Bill, and I probably missed a few of you. But anyway, the chat area, that's where we hang out. That's where we talk about things. Your questions are always fine. And thanks all for the feedback on the sound. Looks like we're good to go. All right, so just sit back, relax, open your ears a bit, and let's play Here's That Rainy Day. All right. That was fun. Did you catch some of the dissonance and the clusters? Did you hear the voice leading, the chromaticism? Did you catch all of that? A few comments in the chat section. Just initial thoughts and impressions would be great to hear. What did your ears pick up? That's what we're looking for today. And just a quick shout out to those that have just joined us, BF, Gary, Rich and Jerry, you were here before. So much going on in there, says Jerry, harmonically. We'll definitely need a transcription. Okay, well, we'll play it one more time near the end, and maybe we can get a better version out of it, although I did have fun playing that. I always listen back to these things because that's how I learn. Just areas for improvement, so I will definitely check it out after the live stream is over, sometime over the weekend if I get a few minutes. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that. Lots of hearts from Keith. All right, here's a link to the sheet music. I'm going to put it in the chat, and as I'm doing that, I'll just put a notice on the screen. So today's download link is now pinned to the top of the chat, and there you go. Go check that out. It's an instant download. It should just render the PDF immediately, and then just click the download link at the top of your browser. No need to give an email. Many of you have been here before, so I already have your email address. And by the way, if you are new and you're going to grab the sheet music, or you see the sheet music on the replay, I would love to have your email address so we can communicate and let you know of upcoming events and specials and all the things we like to do here at Jazz Mental. So please go to jazzmental.com and just join us there. Give us an email address. I'd really appreciate it. Allison says, liked the major versus minor sounds. That's one of the interesting things definitely about Here's That Rainy Day, which I'm now going to post on your screen. There we go. So that's the arrangement that we have for today. You can see that it is both hands and a lot of the same voicings that I used in the improvisation. Alan says, got it. Excellent. Thanks for the feedback. David asks, I'd like to know how you ended the song. So maybe we'll start there first. What I did, and I'll take the sheet music off the screen because it has nothing to do with what's going on there. Typically what I did was, if I'm ending a tune, the ending goes basically like this. This is 3, right? Kind of a 6 instead of it's like flat 3 diminished 7th. And we'll talk about this. And this is 2, 5. So instead of going to 1, what I'll do is I'll go back to 3. To flat 3, and then 2, 5, 1 again. And then I start on flat 5 and go down in chromatics. I got a unison that's out of tune. I wish I could stop the live stream and fix that, but anyway. So did that make sense? One more time. So I did 3 to 6 to 2 to 5 to 3 to flat 3 or 6 2 to flat 5 and go down in half steps. David, I hope that answers that question. Let's throw the sheet music back up on the screen now and see what kind of trouble we can get into figuring out what's happening here. So The first thing I wanted to talk about was this concept of clusters. Take a look at the right hand. I think that's big enough for you to see. I'm hoping that it is. Let me know if you need it a little bit bigger. But anyway, if you look at the right hand, what you have here is all of these clusters. They're like notes that are either a semitone or a whole tone apart. And they make nice voicing. So what you have to do in the left hand typically is, unless you're playing like a whole tone scale, which is really nice, you really want to space out the left hand a little bit. So the left hand descends in half steps. So from F minor to C7 over E to A flat 7 over E flat. So this D7 sharp 9, I want to just point this voicing out. So an interesting voicing for any dominant 7th chord that the melody works would be typically a 9th, sharp 11, and 13. So this is a really nice sort of all-purpose voicing. You'll hear me do that a lot, but in this particular case, because the melody note is the sharp 11, what you can do then is put the 3rd in between the 9th and the sharp 11. So 9th, 3rd, sharp 11. And you get this cluster, which is really nice. So one more time. Now, even on the B flat minor 7, take a look at the inner voices here. You've got A flat, C, D flat, like this. It's also a cluster. And then you've got your C7 flat 9 diminished chords. And then you go from, on the F major 7, you've got an inner voice here from the sharp 5 to the 13th, or sharp 5 to 6. Let me play the line again so I'm not talking over it. And again, on the B flat minor 7, you can see you've got that minor 2nd cluster right in the middle of the voicing. I think you can see that on your screen. But it's line 3. Yes, you can. There was a thought that I had. Oh, right. On bar 6, so where it goes from the line 2, from the G half diminished 7th to C7 flat 9, what I sometimes like to do is run the left hand up in minor seconds like this. You hear that? So it's going. Cool, right? Interesting things to do with the left hand to kind of make your playing just that much more different. And then at the end of line 2, got this lovely C half diminished 7th to F7 with a sharp 5. That's the sharp 5 that really makes that voicing sound cool. So you've got the root in the melody, which is interesting. Get this sound. If you keep the C on top, just hold it and let it fade out. So I'm just holding it, I'm not repeating it. And then I love this E flat 7 sharp 11 voicing here. The reason why this one is interesting is because it has the 7th in the melody. So you've got the tritone in the left hand. If you put the root down, it sounds good too. Except it's a little too weighted. I like this voicing just by itself. It's just like a lovely dissonant type of voicing. So B flat minor 7, cluster in the middle, to E7 with the flat 7 in the melody, and then ninth, and then sharp 11 here. And this is not part of the melody, this little part here. It's just like a call and response. Nice, right? Let's check in with you and see if you have any comments about this stuff. Allison asks, do clusters always have a lot of half steps? What exactly are clusters? Well, let me answer the first question first, which I touched upon a little bit at the beginning after I did the opening performance. Clusters are basically notes that are tightly grouped together in either minor seconds or whole tones. So half steps, minor seconds, chromatics, or whole tones. So for example, this is a cluster. You can put 4 notes together. This is a cluster. Those are all whole tones, but you can also have half tones as well, like this. So that's a cluster. Tightly grouped notes in a cluster. And that's really what we're after here. If you, again, look at the very first line, you've got these clusters. Okay? And that really adds a lot of flavor to your playing. It's nice to spread things out, yes, but clusters give a really nice, quite a bit more dissonant sound. Obviously, this played by itself and out of context just sounds terrible. I mean, I guess it sounds okay, but if you, here's a better example. Let me pick one here. Right, so that A flat 7 here by itself doesn't sound that great, but in the context of the tune, listen. Hear it? It's a different sound, right? And the second part of your question was, do clusters always have a lot of half steps? Not always. It can be whole tones or chromatics. It can also be minor thirds as well as part of the voicing. But typically clusters are just really tightly grouped notes together, 3, 4, even 5 notes. For example, if you want to use 6 notes, this is a great voicing for an A flat 7 sharp 11 chord. So in the context of 2-5-1, listen to that. So E flat minor. The reason why it works is because you've got the sharp 5 of A flat resolving up a half step to the 3rd of D flat 7. So one more time. Fun stuff, right? The lead sheet in the real book has the first chord as major 7. What's the logic in changing it to a minor 7th? Answer, sounds cool. Listen. So here's major. Here's minor. Just a much darker sound. And then go to major. Okay. Personal preference, I guess, and just to be clear about the real book, I may have mentioned this before, but you need to understand that the real book started as a project to put lead sheets together for jazz standards, and it was started by, I believe it was Berklee College of Music. Somebody can correct me on that if they want to, but the original real book was put together by Berklee students. And all they did was listen to music and then transcribe it the way they heard it. Now, if you compare the real book 1 version with the real book 3 version of the same tune, they can be completely different. The chords can be changed, reharmonization done. It's just somebody's interpretation of what they heard or personal preference to the way they change things. So in this particular case, as I'm putting my own sheet music together, it's really personal preference. You can play it major or minor, and that's my logic behind it. I hope that answers your question. Allison says, thanks, Paul. I probably missed this when I went to my printer. It could very well be. Yes, thank you. Clusters similar to block chords. They are. Block chords can be clusters, by the way. So here's block chords as clusters. Okay, so yeah, I mean, block chords, sometimes block chords indicates movement between melody notes. For example, like this in the tune when it goes like this. So you're going from minor to diminished chord to minor. So that's really 6 diminished scale, right? There's a lovely cluster, listen to that. But with the melody note, lovely sound. Okay. Paul asks, hey, Paul, nice arrangement. Thank you. I noticed starting with the minor chord. We just went through that. Go back about 5 minutes. I talked specifically about that. So I'm not going to repeat that. I think you might have written that question before I actually went through that. So there you go. Thank you for repeating the question. Hey, Paul says, where am I here? I lost where I was reading. Give me a second. Back in the chat, I ended off with Paul. Ben. So, hello, Paul. Good morning. It's Ben from Boston. Good to see you. Alan, totally agree. I love the darker sounds, and I use clusters a lot. Thank you, Alan. Ira says, the minor chords embellish the mood of the tune. They do. I agree with that. Definitely darker for sure. It's that minor second sound, right? Versus lovely. Bill says, your ability to get granular about these harmonies is so valuable. Oh, glad to hear that. Nice. RF, Paul, do you source tunes that you play? I'm not sure what that means. Paul, do you source tunes that you play? Can you clarify the question? I'm not sure what you mean exactly. Source means looking for something, finding something, but what are you asking me that I'm finding? I'm finding sheet music for these tunes, or I'm finding like examples of the tunes as like somebody else plays. I'm not sure what exactly you're asking. So, oh, he says look for the original harmony. No, I don't do that. I do it sometimes actually, especially for vocal tunes. For example, vocalists can create arrangements, or arrangers can create things for vocalists that are specifically unique to that vocalist. For example, I like to listen to a lot of the Ray Charles music because that gives you a different flavor of jazz. And yeah, I often do that. So I think the answer to your question is yes. Alan. Paul, an important and endlessly lovely voicing involves putting the third in the bass, but I am unsure of how to think about it. And in particular, when is it used in reharm? So we actually do that here in the tune itself, where we're doing this voicing here. We're putting the third in the bass right here on bar 10. So we're starting with the second, so it's like an A, B, A, C tune, right? So that's a situation where the third is in the bass. It's like a rootless voicing. If you put the bass in there, it sounds like this. I have to spread it like this. It's a different sound. But I often like the dissonance of just the tritone in the left hand. So you'll find that I do that quite a lot with dominant seventh chords, is just put the tritone in the left and it leaves my right hand free to do all kinds of things. Right? And that's how that goes. This mic stand is really giving me issues today. I'm not sure what its deal is. I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee. I hope that's okay with you. I made a coffee, not realizing what time it was, and I love my Nespresso. So it's getting a little bit cold, but it's still good. Let's go down in the tune to here. We're going to start on the B section. And I want to point out a couple of chromatics and clusters that we're talking about here. So 2-5-1 of A flat. This is the one we just did, right? And then our 2-5 of F. But it's minor, right? There's another example of the third in the bass on bar 19. Sorry, bar 14. So G half diminished 7 to C7 flat 9. Actually, it's more like a C7 flat 5 chord. And then what we have at the end here is 3-6-2-5, right? A to D to G minor to C. F. But instead, we're going to use chromatics to go down with the bass, and in the right hand, we're going to create some clusters where we can. For example, G minor 7 to G flat 7 sharp 11. Listen to that. There's our cluster right here. Lovely. Listen to that chord. A flat 7 sharp 11. One more time from bar 13. Actually, let's go from B section. Back to minor. Dynamics when using clusters is very important. It's unlikely that it's going to sound great pounding these types of chords. For example, it doesn't sound horrible, but it sounds so much nicer if you've got some dynamics in there, right? Listen. Quiet. Lovely. And then there's another, so it's A, B, A, C is the tune. So the second section starts here. Instead of going to minor, goes to major. And then here's our 6th diminished scale. And my favorite cluster of the entire day, I'm just going to say that's just an awesome way to voice this chord. So basically what it is octaves on the outside, because the melody note is G, so I'll often do this, and in the bass, next to the lowest note, a half step right there. So that's the root, and you put the major 7th beneath it, and you get this voicing. So A, diminished 7th, pop that note out and put octaves, and you get that lovely cluster here. Sorry. Listen to that voicing. That's the same voicing here that we did here. I've used it twice. So the 4th beat just before the coda sign. And then G flat 7 sharp 11. And then this. F sus with the major 7 in the left hand. So it's a major 7 sus chord. So from the B section, top of the page. Nice. So we hit the coda sign, and that's where we switched. One more time. Let's check in with everyone and see how we're doing in the chat area. I like the echo notes in bars 10, 11, and 12. Thank you. That's where it's going from here. Yeah. Just a little idea I put in there. I hope you enjoy that. Playing the shells in the bass gives you a lot of freedom for alterations in the right hand. That's absolutely true. Shells meaning 2 notes, sometimes the root and the 7th, sometimes the root and the 5th, sometimes the root and the 6th, or the 7th, and sometimes not the root at all, just a 3rd and a 7th. And that does. It absolutely frees you up to do many things. Thank you for the comment, Alan. And Ben says, I like your opening chord as a minor because it allows for the descending chromatic guide tones. Well, yeah, it does, but major would work too. I just think minor just works better. You could even with the C7 put a sharp 5 in there, like this. Just keep that note going. Right? here, when it goes to the B flat minor, often in the solo section, what I'll do is I'll go like this. From D flat 7, I'll go to G flat 7 sharp 11. Like this. So instead of going to B flat minor, I'll go to G flat 7 or G flat major 7 sometimes. So in a solo section like this, hear that? So that's different. Instead of going to B flat minor, you're going to G7 or C7 sharp 9, G7 with the 13th. Sorry, G flat 7 with the 13th. Right? Fun stuff. Please summarize the blues riff, not rift, Paul. Blues riff that you played around the coda sign. I will do that. I will say that before I do that, stick around because I still have another version of this tune to play. And then I'm going to reveal, which, by the way, I haven't really talked about at all in this session, where I'm going to reveal my favorite minor seventh voicing. We're almost there. Currently 12, 13 minutes before the end of the session. I might go a little bit longer depending on how the next performance goes, but please stick around for that. Let me tackle a couple more questions here, though, before I play again. Right, so the blues riff you played around the coda sign. Let's check that out. Was this during the solo that I played or the performance? Because I play blues whenever I feel like it. This is gospel, not really blues, if that's what you're asking. This is just F sus with a major seventh in the left hand to the sixth to the fifth, like that. This is gospel via lots of gospel players, but I got that from Oscar Peterson. If I'm playing a 3-6-2-5 to go back to the top of the head, I might often use blues. So for example, if that's where you're referring to around the coda sign, if we go from the second time ending, which is the B section, so that's where blues comes in. So whenever I get close to either getting back to the top of the tune, doing a turnaround, I'll often employ blues on like 3-6-2-5-1 progressions. They sound nice in that context. can hear whenever blues sort of makes its way into the presentation or whatever I'm playing in the moment, that's kind of just a feel thing. You have to have experience to know when is too much, though, because you don't really want the whole thing to sound like blues, but throwing in a couple of bluesy ideas here and there can really make the ear stand out, or the ear stand on its head a little bit, if that makes sense. I'm trying to get back to the chat. Here we go. Alan says, and lots of people do this with my sheet music, they point out potential mistakes. There could be one. There always is, typically. I write these things out very quickly. I must have put this sheet music together yesterday in about maybe 20 minutes. And all I'm doing is just writing out what I'm playing. So yeah. Where did you say this? Shouldn't there be an F in the bass of bar 24? Shouldn't that be flatted? Let's take a look at that bar 24. Well, bar 24 is here. So I'm not sure we're talking about the same place, because that's a G flat 7 sharp 11 chord. And it's a G flat. So I'm not sure that's what you mean. Maybe you couldn't read the numbers on the page, or you're actually looking at the sheet music. I don't know. Maybe a qualifier would be great. Such a sad and lovely tune. It is. Alan says, I believe shells. Okay, got that. Alan also says, well, there's two Alans. Second Alan. Beautiful substitution of G flat 7 for B flat 7, B flat minor 7. Yes. Why does it work? The reason why it works is because you're using cycle of fifth. So instead of going from here, so cycle of fifth, go down a fifth, you get to G flat. That's why it works. On a G flat chord, it's actually the third in the melody. But if you put a sharp 11 and a cluster in the middle, you get this voicing. Listen to that. It's versus this. This is so much more tonal than this. Yeah. I'm glad you liked it, though. I love those little sort of cycle of fifth and tritone substitution things. They're kind of cool. If you think about the, B flat 7 resolves to E flat. B flat minor goes to E flat 7. The tritone substitution is A7, so it doesn't really make sense in that context. So the reason why it makes sense again is because it's part of the cycle of fifths. So from D flat to G flat. Yeah. The minor bass lines on the C7 are exquisite, thank you. Worth getting up early today, and of course the performance, thank you. Jeff says, how do you train your hands to play those chords so effortlessly? And I love the emoji. That's the emoji of the day right there. Love it. My brain understands the harmony, but my hands refuse to cooperate. Well, I think I've talked about this in other classes where I'll run scales not specifically trying to hit any chord voicing, but just making sure that the voicing comes out of the scale. So for example, if we're running a scale on, say, B flat minor, what I'll try to do is just kind of like run the scale by hitting the notes of the scale. Like that, right? That's the scale. So I'm just trying to run the scale. And there was a few notes that aren't in the scale, but they still work, right? So you're just trying to get most of the scale in there. And that's what makes jazz so great, because as an improvisational tool, there's no way you can think your way through that. You can't go, oh, we're in B flat minor, so the next one has got to be this. which it is, and then the next one has to be this, which it is. Then the next one has to be this, and the next one this, and the next one this. I don't think like that. I think, oh, I've got a B flat minor, anything goes. And they all sound B flat minor, even though there's notes from B flat minor that are outside of the actual chord. They're just part of the scale. If you're doing the same scale over A flat, it's a different sound. Even though the scale is the same, the basis is major versus minor. How do you get your hands to cooperate? You just have to practice those things, Jeff. Everything takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day. It took 790 years. I've been at it for, how long have I been at this? Well, jazz specifically, I've been at it for 43 years. I haven't stopped playing jazz for 43 years. I played piano for several years before that. So total time would be 55 years. You can't do anything for 55 years and not have your hands comply. And that's just how it flows. It's just effortless because, you just work at something so long, you can't help but be good at it. It's like golf, right? If you go golfing at least 3 or 4 times a week within a year, you'll probably break 80. I just don't have that amount of time, so I only break 80 once in a while. Anyway. Oh, now we're qualifying it. Okay, so the note, so Alan says the note in bar 24, I got to take this off this. I didn't realize you had that, not had it on your screen. Give me a second. There we go. So bar 24, we're talking about this bar. And G flat 7, it says major, right? Yes, put an F flat on that. So this in the left hand, actually, you know what? The major 7th works, but here, this is what he's referring to, this bar right here. So just change the F in the bass to F flat or E natural, your choice. Because G flat 7 sharp 11 works better going to F minor versus major. Major works too, but it's different sound for sure. Thank you again. Sometimes I don't always get it right. And in this case, you have, and Alan's very good at that. He's very technical, and he's definitely deeply committed to the process, just like many of the people that are coming to this week after week. That deep commitment sort of shows up and goes, hey, this is really going to help everyone, so thank you for pointing that out. Allison said there's so much in this session, I would love it for it to be covered in a masterclass some month. Yeah, we might actually cover some of that this month. Thank you, Allison, which is, I think, coming up. Is it next week? I know there's a lot of our insider group masterclass people here that show up on Wednesday once a month at 1 o'clock for a couple hours. Is it next week? Or is it the week after next? We're somewhere near the end of the month or near the middle of the month, so I'm not exactly sure when it is. I know September only has 30 days, so maybe somebody could check on that for me. That'd be great. Well, actually, I could probably check it myself. Give me a second. It is. It's next week. So in 4 days from now, on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will discuss some of these things. So thank you for Allison for giving me a great suggestion. Modi says, yes, next week. Woohoo! For those of you that, by the way, have not submitted recordings to me, I still would love to receive those a little bit ahead of time so I have a chance to respond and maybe talk about your performance in the private masterclass. All right, let me play this thing one more time. I would love to sit and chat with you all day, but I usually get in a couple of performances. Let's see how this one goes. And maybe we can compare them later if anybody's looking for a transcription. I did want to point out, though, in today's download on the last page, there is information about this tune. I know it's not Christmas yet, but you got to get ready for it. So I did this not as a live stream presentation. I wanted to really just play by myself late at night, and I recorded a version of that, and I had PJ transcribe it. The transcription is now finished. For those of you that have already pre-purchased it, I think a few of you, I sent it, the second version, to you today, but the full version is ready. It's several pages, and there is a 40% discount coupon code in the sheet music that I've given you. I'm gonna put that coupon code on the screen. It's called Holly Jazz. Just use that. If you go to the website and you can't find it, just search for God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. And it's just, I love what I did on this tune. And if you're really looking for a transcription for Christmas so you can play it at your Christmas concert or wherever you're playing, please check that out, because I definitely think it's worth having for those of you that like to perform around the holidays. All right, let me take that off the screen, turn this microphone off. I'll play a little bit and we'll come back and talk some more. All right, and one more thing. I'm going to reveal my favorite minor seventh chord voicing right after this. And Martin, thank you, Paul. See you next time. I appreciate that. Emoti, hey, Nancy. All the best, praying for your strength. Thank you, Emoti. Appreciate that. Lots of comments. Okay, so I'm going to reveal now my favorite minor seventh voicing. Okay. So in the context of this tune, I didn't actually use it much, but here it is. So the way that I voice this is like this. Let's take G minor seventh. So you got a fifth in the bass and then play the third as well. So if you can reach that, this is the best voicing there is. And then play the cluster in the middle by putting the 11th right next to the third. And then what you want to do is play a triad in the right hand. So this is G flat, this is the 7th, the 9th, and the 11th. So you've got the octaves in the right hand. Listen to that on D minor. Listen to it on E minor. Back to G minor. It's going to be a little bit harder for some of you to reach the F minor, but that basically works like this. So that's harder to reach because you've got this now. Sometimes, right? Certainly a lot easier with white notes. Okay, one more time. Root, 5th, 3rd, 11th, 7th, 9th, 11th. Great sounding chord. My favorite minor seventh voicing. There you go. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate the fact that you're here. On the sheet music download one more time, the last page of it has a link in the PDF. Just click the link. Your browser should open. It'll take you to the God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen full, complete, just finished piano transcription. I received it from the transcriber PJ yesterday, and we all know, for those of you that have bought transcriptions from me before, he does an awesome job, and they are so accurate. I'm so happy with his work. It supports the channel when you do those things, and it'll definitely, even if you only want to do like the first chorus of solo and play that at your Christmas concert, it'll definitely be a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I appreciate everyone that showed up today, and lots of busy comments in the chat area today. Super appreciate that. And we will see everybody next week, same time, same place, here on the Jazz Mental YouTube channel. And for those of you that missed part of it, just go now and watch the replay. Paul Toby here on behalf of Nancy and I. Take care. Have a great